Good morning and welcome to Ananda. And also welcome to all those that are tuning in on the internet. This is a reading from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Ananda, entitled Endless Thrills of Delight. I attune my life with thine. Now my life has become a long, unbroken inspiration. Thy fountain of bliss refreshes and delights me night and day, whether I be wakeful, fast asleep, or dreaming fondly of thee. Oh, what has become of me? Delight on overwhelming delight. Endless, indescribable thrills of divine delight spray unceasingly over me. O aged nectar, wine of centuries, I found thee at last, and will taste of thy sweetness forever, forever, forever. And from the New Path by Swami Kriyabans, this is drawn from the chapter Work versus Meditation. Jan Savage, a young boy of 9, who had come to Mount Washington with his mother, was meditating one day with Daniel Boone when he had a vision of Jesus Christ. Thrilled, he told Boone about it afterwards. It could be your imagination, Boone said. Better say nothing more till you ask Master about it. Master was away at that time, returned to give the service the following Sunday. Afterwards, Jan joined the line of devotees that always waited to come forward for Master's blessings. As he approached, Master reached out and tousled his hair affectionately. So, he cried, little Jan had a vision of Jesus Christ. That's very good. That was a true vision. Boone told me in February of an experience he too had after keeping his mind steadfastly on Master for 2 days. He was given a kind of ecstasy in which he was quite unable to feel his body, even while he moved about, performing his daily duties in the print shop. I had to pray finally that I'd be able to feel my body again, he said. I was afraid I might harm it in the machinery. Well, I thought, that's for me. More eager for the experience itself, I'm afraid, than for a humble attunement with my guru, I kept my mind on Master one-pointedly. He was in Encinitas at the time. 2 or 3 days later, he arrived at Mount Washington. I met him by the front porch as he arrived. What sort of mischief are you up to, Walter? He smiled significantly. None, sir. Mischief? It didn't seem like mischief to me. I began to understand what he meant, but was reluctant to accept his definition of what I'd been doing. As he was going indoors, he smiled lovingly, saying, Goodbye, Walter. Thinking the matter over, I had to admit to myself that while my practice had been right, my intentions had been wrong. Don't seek experience as meditation, Master told us. The path to God is not a circus. More touching was the experience of another disciple, Reverend Michael, who, feeling deep love for Master, would often repeat the words mentally, I love you, Guru. One day, Master responded to a silent offering. The two of them happened to meet in the Hermitage Garden at Encinitas. With a gaze of deep tenderness, the Guru said, I love you too. Recently, perhaps some of you have viewed the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. And when I heard the Olympics were there, I was struck by the wonderful image of Christ, which I had seen many, many years ago, overlooking the city with outstretched arms. It really is thrilling, and I thought it should be duplicated. The great masters there with their arms outstretched, as they are, of course, but visibly so in every great city and throughout the world. It really was thrilling to think of someone who came up with that good idea and was able actually to materialize it. Well, in this Olympics, of course, this is true of all the various Olympics. There's all kinds of backstories and exciting things with people that are pushing themselves to the outer limits, you might say, of their being and of their strength. And they've been working for years. It's a long, long time to sustain one's effort over a 4-year period and longer for some of these Olympians that return to the Olympics again and again. And so here was this experience that was really quite amazing, where these two runners, one American, I believe one European, collided. And of course, when you think of it, it's just a heartbreak when one considers the amount of effort that they put out, and so many as a part of their team. They collided, they were out of the race. And so, as is the norm, the other runners hardly pay any attention. They've got their eyes on the gold and the medals, and that was that. But the two women that collided together did something that I think for many, many years, and for them too, of course, will be absolutely unforgettable, perhaps even more than the medals and the thrill of being in the Olympics themselves. They helped each other up and determined that they were in the Olympics, and as Olympians, they should finish the race. And one of the women, the American, was really quite injured. And they had a good amount to go. And they went around the track a couple of times to get across the finish line. And of course, it wasn't for the gold, but it really was, in a way, more gold than the gold medals themselves, because as she was interviewed later, I believe it was the European, she said, at one point I'll be asked, what was it like to be there in the Olympics? Maybe 20 years will have passed. And she said, I'm going to go back to this memory where these two, souls were able to rise to the occasion and thrill the international audience by being, by having that beautiful spirit that it's more than just getting the gold. It's really about helping one another, caring for one another. It really was very, very sweet. And I think when I think of the Olympics in future, that image undoubtedly will come to my mind as one of the highlights among many others. Well, when we think of our own lives and what it takes, we too, with an inner life now, are Olympians. We have to struggle as they struggle, both physically, mentally, emotionally, when one embarks on a journey such as striving to be an Olympian. It's not just getting the physical body in shape. You're working on every single cylinder, every single cell of your being. And many of them are spiritual people. And they know that this is something that is between them and God. And many have the right spirit, that they're competing with themselves. That's what I always loved about Ananda, when Swami would say about different events that we'd be taking part in, sports events and so on. He would say to the children, you're competing with yourself. And I thought, I wish I had learned that when I was younger, because all I remember when I used to play baseball is the coach yelling at us all the time. And that was about it. I enjoyed it. Not that, but I enjoyed playing. But what was this? This was overboard. We're competing with ourselves. And with that spirit, then as we're working on growing spiritually, then we want to encourage our brothers and sisters as we race toward the goal in any way that we can, hopefully through our growing of example, etc. But also to keep in mind that this is, as Yogananda said, a long haul. This isn't something that we come out of God and then merge back into God. Maybe when we finally reach our goal, there'll be some of these select ones that did just that. And that's going to be interesting to see. But I have my doubts. I think that every single one, without exception, that embarks on the great journey to find God will have had a multitude of experiences until we come back once more into the fold. And so, as Yogi Olympians, then we do ourselves a very, very great turn to keep in mind, as we are reading in the path, that the path to God is not a circus. And for a lot of people, it is just that. And there is this a desire to see if anybody has noted of the particular radiance that day. You know, they had a wonderful meditation, and they're glowing, and they kind of look around to see if anyone is seeing a halo around their head. That kind of thing. Complete nonsense. It does absolutely nothing. Remember when Swamiji with his fellow monk, Brother Norman, went on the Great Cure. Brother Norman was at that time very keen on these various fasts and so on. And so Swami being new, he thought, well, that's just fine. And he talked to Master, and they were on the Great Cure and so on. And Master said to them, really, the great purifier is not grapes. That helps too. It's the purity of heart. And so Swami thought, well, I wonder if I should just give up the fast for now. And Master said, no, you don't want to break your will. So he continued, as Swamiji said, for a few more days. But his heart was not into it. Good lesson. Because it was something that, though a good thing, at that point in time, he was battling his intellect. He was very intellectual. And he was needing to be more in his heart. As Master said one time to a group of monks, look how I've changed Walter, as he called Swamiji. And I've always appreciated that so much, because that's exactly what's happening. As we are able to get beyond the phenomenon of the mind, and the phenomenon of the restless heart, and all of these things, not to mention our environment, we find that we become more and more tenacious and follow Reverend Michael, who was later Bhaktinanda. Follow his example. I love you, Guru. Simple enough. And what did Master do? Came to Reverend Michael at the Encinitas garden and said, I love you too. Because he knew. He could feel that love. He could feel that blessing that the disciple was working hard on himself, attuning himself to the Guru. And so for us, it is quite a task to do what we can to embark on the path, to stay on the path steadfastly, because the path is the razor's edge. And I've been finding more and more a lot of inspiration from the thought of a disciplined mind's a happy mind. And I've been enjoying watching especially the interaction between the mind and the heart. And I'll be having a good meditation. And I'm always, of course, happy for that, as we all are. And the next thing I know, out of nowhere comes a random thought. And it could be a silly thought of what's for lunch. It could be a worry thought. It could be whatever. And I've been trying my best to train myself to be in the watchful state, to see what kind of impact this thought has on my heart during this time of refinement, where I'm in a meditative mood. And I see it has an immediate effect. The energy in the heart shuts down, and the mind becomes clouded. And I think to myself, do I want to pursue this? Because of course, as we well know, as experienced yogis and yoginis, that every thought has a relative. And so you say, okay, I'll just have a little worry about this particular upcoming event. But I want to worry a little bit more about it, because I maybe can come up with a strategy. Always the ego, always the Maya is always saying, this worry or this particular something that I've introduced actually is good. This is a productive thing. This is something spiritual. After all, didn't Master say that even worry can be spiritually stimulating? Well, there you are. You have it. I just read it myself. And of course, that has to be in context and so forth. And so we find that we become very, very guarded. Not in a way that would introduce tension, because we know that that's the opposite of what we want. We want to relax on deeper and deeper levels. But we become more and more keen on making sure that all the sentries that need to be there 24/7 to guard the gates of our mind, to guard the gates of our heart, are there, so that we can say again and again, I love you, Guru. That we can say again and again, I love you, God, and mean it, and not have it some kind of mechanical practice. I remember in the early days when I first was introduced to mantra. Mantra is very, very powerful, but I got irritated because I would be doing my mantra and thinking about other things. And it reminded me of a story when a woman came up to Swami and said, please help me. My child is in need of prayer. They're ill. But I do my very best to pray for them. But I've also been thinking about, what am I going to get at the grocery store for dinner? And it's really exasperating. What should I do? I don't remember Swamiji's response, but I think we can come up with one, on our own. That's life. We do our best, and putting out all of our energy, all our concentration, and in comes the random thought. It's a side practice, sometimes for quite some time. How many meditations have we woken up 10, 15, 20 minutes if it hasn't gobbled up more? And we have not been meditating. And we realize, once again, meditation is not thinking. And meditation is not daydreaming. Meditation is meditation. Meditating on the techniques, meditating with devotion. And so, the path to God is not a circus, though sometimes it certainly appears to be such. When we look over our lives, Roma and I, in our 30-year anniversary, which we just celebrated, it was fun to think in terms of the various things that we have experienced. And of course, there's many that we've all experienced over the years. But what is the most important? The very, very most important experience for the devotee is the growing love for God. So that we are able, bit by bit, to rise to the occasion again and again, and not spend so much downtime when life comes to toss us around, or perhaps to appear to crush us even, to crush our spirit. We think more in terms of, well, God does everything for the best. When I first stumbled upon that, I thought, well, I'm going to have to spend some time with this. So I, as an experience, it was a bit of a training. Okay, if God does everything for the best, how about that past episode 10 years ago when it was just pure devastation? Let's spend some time with that. I thought, well, there were some lessons that were gained from that. Okay, and then I'd bring up another episode, perhaps equally as tragic in my mind at the time. And I thought, no, that brought some sweetness, it brought some humility. That was good too. And after a while, I found myself ceasing to test God in this way, because I had the thought in mind, God tests us, why not test God? There was not one time, and I've really stopped that habit of searching for seeing if I can have God over a barrel, so to speak, where I finally found something where He made a mistake. He dumped a bunch of something around, whatever, water on my head or whatever it was. I was caught in a storm, unprepared, without my umbrella, and He already knew I had a cold, and now it was worse. How could this be better? How could this be the love of God? How could this bring out sweetness? But I go further and further into it and say, well, I didn't like that much, but when I regained my health, I was certainly appreciative of it. Far more appreciative than I had been in a long time. As I walked around the garden, I felt that my feet were as light as air. Hadn't experienced that for a while, for a long time, perhaps ever. Why was that? Because I had been tested. And somehow, some way, I was able to get through that tunnel and come out the other side. And so, it really is neti, not this, not that. I don't want any of these things, especially as we get closer and closer to our own souls. I don't want this kind of food if this is going to just bring me down. I want to make sure that I'm mindful that if I have this particular piece of cake and so forth, this late hour in the day, I'm going to be affected by it. I don't want to go into this environment just because I'm a little bored and come out the other side after listening to harsh music and whatnot, finding that I'm really in a state of ruin, worse off than I was before. Better to be bored than have a typhoon condition in my own brain. And so we begin to become more and more discriminating, but in a way that is sweet. Because otherwise we can become so careful. Swami shared with us the term that the Catholics have over scrupulosity, where we become, almost like a hothouse plant where we can't even negotiate going to the store without needing to protect ourselves from the bad vibes. It's ridiculous. We're in this world, good, bad, and indifferent. That's why we want to spend time in our spines. That's why we want to spend time in God. So that though we don't want to look for trouble, that's a mistake. But if we find that we are in situations, then it's fine. It's not a problem. I was in the store the other day, and a larger supermarket, and it was dark. I thought, well, that's not very good for selling the products. Who can see what they're trying to buy? But I thought to myself, thank goodness for cell phones. They have many, many different things. Everyone was pulling out their cell phones and looking, for their product that they wanted. And it became actually quite delightful. And I thought, that's how we should be. That's the spirit we should have in this world. When the shadow comes in our own minds, or perhaps we're being tumbled by our karma or the environment or whatever, we should bring out the light and gaze about with the spiritual eye, so to speak. And in that way, then we are brought down by the experiences of life. There's a smile that comes to our face. And I won't forget now. Matter of fact, I think when I go to the store, next time I'll think, oh darn, the lights are on. I was wanting to go around and find my stuff with my flashlight. Not having that experience before, let's duplicate it again. It was a lot of fun, and everyone was so cheerful. Often that is the case, when there's some kind of disaster, and this one wasn't a disaster, it was a mini disaster, you might say. Everyone was smiling and helping each other and bumping into each other and saying, excuse me, and on it goes. It was really quite delightful and something very worthy of YouTube. But I don't think anybody got that particular film. We'll have to capture that in our own memory. So, looking for God, day after day, that is our task. And it takes quite a lot of spiritual qualities that keep us moving forward with enthusiasm. Kindness to ourselves, kindness to others, self-respect, respect for others, growing compassion, growing joy. And as we're able to experience these delights of the soul, then we find more and more that we're thinking less of ourselves and thinking more of the bigger picture. What can I do to grow in my consciousness so that I can help others that don't have what I have? Perhaps it's outer gifts, certainly the inner gift that the yogis all have, because we have made the discovery of the portable paradise inside. And so, God bless our continuing efforts. That's what it's all about, continued efforts. It's such a wonderful thing to expand in our meditations and think about the great family of masters that is throughout the world, in faraway places like Rio de Janeiro and Africa, and throughout India, America, and on it goes. So many souls deeply seeking of this path, of other paths, very, very sincere, very, very keen on finding God, hopefully, this lifetime.